published in the Colorado Register on September 30, 2016, pertaining to Colorado Liquor Rules 1 CCR 203-2. Before we begin, if you have not already done so, please set your cell phones or other electronic devices to silent. If you do need to make or take a telephone call, I would ask that you please step out into the hallway over here so that we can continue with the public hearing. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to Colorado Administrative Procedure Act, specifically Section 24-4-103, subsection 4 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. I'm going to regulate the course of this hearing pursuant to Section 24-4-103, subsection 13 of that same law. Based on the record of this hearing, I'm going to prepare a report with recommendations on the proposed rules to the state licensing authority, who does have final decision-making authority with respect to the proposed rules. The purpose of today's hearing is to give interested people the opportunity to submit written or oral views, comments, or data regarding the proposed rules. This is a quasi-legislative hearing. That means it is not adversarial. Any comments that you make can either be in support of or in opposition to the rules. The comments must be specifically addressed to the proposed rules and not to any other subject. Comments on any subjects other than the proposed rules will not be allowed. The rules will be considered by subject in the order provided for on the agenda. We might change that up just a little bit here. If anyone has not received a copy of that agenda, there are copies on the back table over here. The division staff will give a presentation on the proposed rules by subject, and then we will open the floor to public comments on those particular set of rules. If time permits, at the end of the day, once we have covered all of the proposed rules, I will then open it up to comments on any of the rules that have been presented today, and we are scheduled to go until 5 p.m. if we need it. Hopefully we're not here that long. Anybody wishing to make a comment at today's hearing, please sign in on the sheet over here at the table by the front door. A comment for each public speaker is going to be limited to 2 minutes. I will notify each speaker when their time is up, and I ask that when I do tell you that, if you can please return to your seat so that the next speaker can make their comment. Please state and spell your name clearly so that the court reporter can key it in properly, and then you may make your comments. I would ask that you speak slowly and clearly so that she can hear and write everything down regarding your comment. In order to fully develop the record for the proposed rules, I may call on representatives of the division to provide comments during this hearing, or I may extend the 2-minute time limit for comments by other speakers. If you do not have the opportunity, or if you prefer not to make an oral comment, you can submit written comments. The record is going to remain open for written comments until November 3rd, 2016 at 5 p.m. All comments must be received by that time to be included in the record. Written comments are submitted on Form DR2477. You can submit those either via email to sandra.lohman@state.co.us or by mail to the Liquor Enforcement Division at 1881 Pierce Street, Suite 108, Lakewood, Colorado, 80214. Please include your name and your mailing address on any written comments so that they can appropriately be added to the record for these proposed rules. Anyone who has any questions on how to submit a comment can contact a representative of the division, and they will help you with that. All right, and with that, I'm going to ask the people seated next to me here if they would introduce themselves. We'll just start here and go down the table.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Camerzell. I'm the Senior Director of Enforcement for the Colorado Department of Revenue.
Good afternoon, Patrick Maroney, Director of Liquor Enforcement Division.
Linda Atkins, Colorado Attorney General's Office.
Jake Baus, Liquor Enforcement Division.
All right, thank you. And I will ask the division staff to go ahead and present the opening remarks and the first set of proposed rules.
Thank you. For the last several months, the Liquor Enforcement Division has had a series of working group meetings due to several changes in the law this year, especially with Senate Bill 16-197 and House Bill 16-1439. Along with the subjects of those two new bills, the division also had an opportunity under the regulatory agenda to look at rules that we have on our in the rulemaking process to see if any changes, deletions, or modifications should be made. What I'm proposing today is accumulation of the meetings we've held, along with feedback from industry members, from citizens. And with that, I'm going to go forward with where we're going to start. And what I'd like to do is, there's one specific rule I know a lot of people want to talk about today, and that's Rule 47-900, Conduct of Establishment. And due to the fact that we're at 1 o'clock on October 31st, and if someone wants to leave early, this is what I think one subject that most people here would like to talk about. So if we could start there, Hearing Officer, I would like to do that.
That's fine, go ahead.
So we're going to start with changes to Regulation 47-900. A copy of the rules published to the Secretary of State's was provided on our website, as well as copies emailed to everyone on our industry email list. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read what the proposed rule is and then give some background. Regulation 47-900, titled Conduct of Establishment. Section E. This is a newly added section to that rule, titled Marijuana Consumption. Regulation reads, no person or entity licensed under Article 46, 47, or 48 of Title 12 CRS shall permit the consumption of marijuana and or marijuana products as defined in sections 14 and 16 of Article 18 of the Constitution of the Colorado on any licensed premises. When we were having rulemaking meetings all summer long, the subject of marijuana consumption on a liquor license facility was discussed. Due to some pending voting coming up this next month in Denver, we had discussions about allowing marijuana consumption on licensed facilities for alcohol. The Colorado Constitution says that notwithstanding any provision of law, the following acts are not lawful and shall not be an offense under Colorado law or the law of any locality within Colorado. Subsection C, consumption of marijuana, provided that nothing in this section shall permit consumption that is conducted openly and publicly or in a manner that endangers others. So the Colorado Constitution allows marijuana consumption, except it shall not permit consumption that is conducted openly and publicly. The Liquor Enforcement Division has taken a stance since the passage of Amendment 64 that consumption of marijuana in a liquor license facility is not allowed, and therefore would be a violation of 47-900. We decided, based upon comments from the industry members and also from our own enforcement personnel, to make it a little more clear within the rule, and just not the Constitution, that this activity is not allowed within a liquor license facility. Liquor enforcement is a matter of statewide concern. CRS 12-47 or 46-102 subsection 1, under the legislative declaration of the Beer Code, said the General Assembly hereby declares that it is in the public interest that fermented malt beverage shall be manufactured, imported, and sold only to persons licensed and provision of this article. Section 1247-102 subsection 1 under the legislative declaration within the Liquor Code, it says the General Assembly hereby declares that this article shall be deemed an exercise of the police powers of the state for the protection of the economic and social welfare and the health, peace, and morals of the people of this state. Given Liquor Enforcement's Division and the state licensing authorities authority to promulgate rules under section 1247-202 subsection 1B, says that rules adopted pursuant to paragraph B of subsection 1 of this section may cover, without limitation, the following subjects. Paragraph A says compliance with enforcement or violation of any provisions of this article. Section C says instructions for local licensing authorities and law enforcement officers. Subsection L, health and sanitary requirements. And subsection M, standards of cleanliness, orderliness, decency, and sample analysis of product. Liquor enforcement believes that combining marijuana and alcohol in a liquor license facility is not in the public interest, and therefore I'm asking to establish a rule prohibiting that within the rule.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on this, I'm going to ask you to sit in that chair right there. Just state your name and speak slowly and clearly. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Nick Hoover, NickHoover, and I'm here today representing the Colorado Restaurant Association. The Colorado Restaurant Association Board of Directors about a year and a half ago took a position that they did not want to see the combination of marijuana and alcohol consumption in a licensed premise because they believe that it is a bad public policy or a dangerous public policy to endorse or support the consumption of these two substances in one location. We fully support the changes that the division is asking for in Regulation 47900 under the conduct of establishment because we just believe that it is not a good public policy to combine the two. We have heard from our members that there's significant concerns about the impact this could have on the liquor industry, even for those establishments that choose not to allow the dual consumption of both products. Including the fact that we have heard from several liquor liability insurance carriers that if it were to become prevalent in the state of Colorado, the consumption of marijuana and alcohol together, that they would simply pull out of the state and not offer liquor liability coverage in the state, which I think we could all agree is probably going to be a bad thing. If there's 10 companies and 7 of them pull out, prices are going to go through the roof, and who knows what's going to happen with litigation on all of those cases that would be covered by liquor liability policies. So with that being said, we would ask that the changes to 47900 under Code of Conduct, or Conduct of Establishment, Section E go through as they are.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I also had a handout here that I was hoping to give to the division for the record, if at all possible.
That's fine. Go ahead and bring that up. Give it to them and I'll make it part of the record.
Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Emmett Reistroffer, E-M-M-E-T-T-R-E-I-S-T-R-O-F-F-E-R. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I work at Denver Relief Consulting, but today I'm testifying on behalf of myself and really speaking from my experience as a former liquor and marijuana licensing authority for the city of Inglewood, where we spent the past year and a half nearly working through an ad hoc committee, working with different officials in the city to address precisely this issue, which is already going on in Inglewood. I'm actually opposed to this rule merely because I think it ties our hands at the local level, and I think these discussions need to continue before we pass a rule and put something set in stone. There's just a lot of inadvertent consequences that I think have not been addressed, and in my 2 minutes right now, I really can't go into details on those, but there's just a long list of inadvertent consequences we learned in Inglewood, and now what we're talking about in Denver, where, quite frankly, polyconsumption has been happening long before marijuana was even legal, and it's happening right now, and it's not allowed. And so I have a lot of doubt and concern about the ability to enforce this type of rule, because right now you go to a concert in Denver, and chances are you will smell marijuana when you're enjoying the concert. So we want to empower those venues and those places to create designated areas, at least myself and some of the other advocates that I've been working with to address this issue of public consumption of cannabis. I do not think the Constitution would rule out that possibility, but what is being proposed in Denver to look at that as one part of the permit, to either ban it or to limit it, or to put it in one designated area. So I just ask that you consider holding off on passing this rule so we can go into the details of those inadvertent consequences, because I think you could end up opening a whole can of worms that you haven't really thought out fully yet. So I appreciate the discussions the division has had so far. I wish I had been involved earlier in those discussions. Quite frankly, I don't think the notice was really made fairly to the public that's showing up here today to respond. I just ask that you give those of us a chance who have concerns about that rule to express those. I do have a letter here today from my employer who also would like to be on record in opposition, so I'd like to provide this to the division, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll give you some more time if you want to tell me what some of these unintended consequences are.
Sure.
That you're concerned about.
One thing that's happening in Inglewood, where there is a club that opened unannounced and unlicensed, is they don't allow alcohol, and actually you're seeing the members cross the street to a bar on Broadway. Some of the public safety officials in Inglewood even agreed that that is concerning, just because people are crossing the street, crossing back, and then the staff at one establishment isn't aware of what those customers are doing at the other establishment, so the left hand's not talking to the right hand. Where I envision a setting at a music venue where you could have a designated area with specifically trained staff and security staff that can monitor this and supervise this consumption of either substance. So that's just one inadvertent consequences, is people just going next door and coming back and forth, and the staff not being able to monitor that fully. In addition, people are just bringing marijuana in these venues right now, and where has the enforcement been already? Nothing is stopping people. It's really stressing and frustrating the establishments, I think, because it's up to them to self-enforce, and really what they're asking for. We have over 200 businesses in Denver that have endorsed the Denver Initiative, because they do believe a supervised, designated environment is how to truly address this issue, rather than just saying no, which has never really worked. We want to put controls in place that the establishment can enforce and can use to their advantage. Also, just one last note on that is that when we talk about polyconsumption, I know you highlighted the Denver Initiative. A lot of times, people just want to be in the same setting. I might use marijuana but might not drink alcohol, but I want to go out with my friends who want to drink alcohol. And we're all responsible adults, 21 and older, and we just want to socialize in the same setting. So I think there's kind of a cultural aspect to this as well, too, where cannabis consumers are continuing to be stigmatized and really pushed out to the back alleys and around the corner to use cannabis as opposed to alcohol.
Okay, thank you. If you want to bring that comment forward, we'll make it part of the record.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I only have 3 copies, unfortunately, but
Thank you.
I can also email a copy.
Yes, perfect.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi everybody, Stephanie Franson, Director of the Tavern League of Colorado.
Can you spell your name, please?
S-T-P-H-A-N-I-E.
Can you slow down?
Oh, sorry.
Way down. You said your name was Stephanie?
Franson, F-R-A-N-S-E-N. And the Director of the Tavern League of Colorado.
Tavern League?
Yes.
League.
League.
Go ahead.
I'll keep my comments short and sweet. We are supportive of Regulation 47-900, pretty much for all the reasons that the Restaurant Association expressed. Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Thompson, K-R-I-S-T-E-N, T-H-O-M-S-O-N. I did submit written rules, and today I'm actually here. That was a fast process. So on behalf of my client, which is Mindful LLC, they are a cannabis company, duly licensed cannabis company in Colorado. The concerns really about this rule rule, we didn't get the basis and purpose until Thursday, so we did not comment to that in writing. It differs actually from what was just presented here about constitutional concerns, open and public, those kinds of conversations that have actually been happening at the local level as well as at the Colorado legislature. We think that this was actually outside of the, because there was no legislative action on this, and it has been a long topic of conversation with the legislature trying to make the right policy decision on this, considering all of the factors, a lot of which Emmett did outline, that really this decision seems to be made from our standpoint based on fear and the way a lot of other marijuana policy has been made over time. I went back and read everything that was available online and listened to the discussions. I did not hear much talk about the science of dual consumption, and that it's just really an assumption. Those have been conversations that have been debated by policymakers in our state, and we're just not there yet. I think that it's troubling. It was last week. It was announced that the marijuana industry is the third largest industry in the state, and that a regulatory body would make the kind of determination that a product made in that would be banned in some locations with, and I'm just going off the basis and purpose, orderliness, decency, the things that were outlined there. It is just troubling from the industry perspective, from my client's perspective. That really wraps up everything I have to say. I echo what Emmett has discussed. Our company is working at the local level to address some of the needs in communities that do not have much space and may have to dual license or create a wall or something like that. This takes that opportunity completely off the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the record, at the end I was going to submit some other written records that we have received. The Liquor Enforcement Division has received 2 other written documentations before today. It came in on Friday. I'd like to submit, and maybe after we're done with the testimony I can do that. But Ms. Thompson was one of those, and I do have that for the record that was not included earlier.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, Jason Hopfer, Hopfer, on behalf of Pueblo County. Pueblo County is opposed to the current provision being discussed in the Liquor Enforcement Rule. In fact, Pueblo County has an ordinance in place with which, I said it twice fast. This proposed rule is in direct conflict. I would take some issue with the notion of statewide concern in this provision, as a majority of counties and cities in the state of Colorado have not allowed for the retail sale of marijuana. That has been paramount local concern issue to allow. And in the case of my client, they have allowed these dual licenses with license approval from both the marijuana authorities and from liquor authorities if they're able to get those 2. I would echo the statements that were filed by a law firm of Vicente Cedarburg as also relevant
The law
to
firm of?
Vicente Cedarburg. Vicente Cedarburg. That were filed on the 28th with more detailed description as to the opposition of Pueblo County as well. But having already adopted an ordinance and gone forward with this, I don't understand why the department had not contacted Pueblo County either. And with that, that's all the comments I have.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
afternoon. My name is Nick Petrolini, that's Petrollini. I'm Executive Director of Colorado Bar Owners Association, and I could sit here and say that we agree with the Colorado Restaurant Association and the Tavern League, but as our board has met and discussed this, it seems that this is a matter of a ruling to agree with the Constitution. And I don't believe anybody has the ability to override that at a meeting like this, and on that basis alone, we stand in support of this.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right.
That was sort of a different testimony section as opposed to public comments. Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Dr. Daniel Viho. I manage the Marijuana Health Monitoring and Research Program at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and I'm here on behalf of the department. We support this measure in the interest of protecting public health and safety. We have an advisory committee made up of volunteers, doctors, and scientists who review the scientific literature around many topics related to marijuana use. And this committee in the literature has found that use of both marijuana and alcohol leads to greater impairment than use of either substance alone, and greater motor vehicle crash risk. Further, dual use is very common, despite the fact that some individuals may only choose to use one of those substances in an establishment. It's so common that in studies that attempt to look at them separately, they have smaller numbers of marijuana only than marijuana and alcohol at the same time. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, sir.
Do you have any written information we could have for the record?
I do. I can give you some references to the studies that these statements are based on. And if you request, if you'd like some other brief written statement, I can supply that.
Yeah, and any results of the information provided today would be good on record for in written form.
Sure, absolutely.
If we do that
I think the record's open until 5 p.m. on November 3rd.
Okay.
Right.
So we have until Thursday. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I have one more note for 5 seconds?
Go ahead.
I know the point of
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Emmett Rice-Cropper. The point of the constitutionality has been brought up a couple times, so I was just trying to search on my phone the actual language in Amendment 64. I can't quote precisely where it is, but I just wanted to encourage the division to read farther down in that section. There is another section. You speak to the part where it says, "Nothing in this shall allow the use of it openly and publicly." State lawmakers have talked about how openly and publicly is to be defined, but if you look further at Amendment 64, it also says, "Nothing in this shall prohibit a private property owner from regulating, among several things, consumption." Therefore, we think a licensed establishment is considered private property, and those private property owners should have the right to regulate consumption on their property.
Can I make a,
Thank you for letting me come back up.
Thank you.
May I make a comment to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for the information, Emmett. The Liquor Enforcement Division historically and continues to treat all liquor license establishments as open to the public, because a public person, anybody in the public can walk into those establishments. Therefore, even though it is private property, we still treat that as a public area because anyone from the public can walk in. So that's our enforcement and our the way we handle that. Just to keep on the record.
All right, any more comments on Regulation 47-900?
I I just have some documents that were forwarded to the division that were not part of the initial rule record that I want to provide you. One was an email from Ms. Thompson that I want to make sure gets in the rule record about her objection. There was reference to some of the testimony today of information that was submitted to us on DR 2477 from Vicente Cedarberg. So that's their objection. Vicente Cedarberg. I'll get you the spelling on that. And then lastly was, I received an email from Mothers Against Drunk Driving in support of this rule change. So I submit that as well.
Thank you.
They were not able to be here today.
All right, thank you. These will be part of the record.
Then there's the two that were submitted to me, or one from Mr. Hoover from the Restaurant Association. And I think you have the other one from Denver Relief Consulting. Did you get that one?
No, I don't have that yet. All right, thank you. These will all be part of the record. Any additional comments? All right, I see no hands. Thank you. Mr. Maroney?
Thank you very much. Going back to the beginning, before we even get to the beginning, I'm going to discuss another subject that we did with rulemaking. The division has decided to have a basis and purpose for each rule, in the rulemaking process. Previously, they were not there. Published basis and purpose were not provided. So in order to become compliant, we have submitted, or on our website and submitted to our industry email list, a basis and purpose for each rule. I'm just going to submit them to the hearing officer, and there's like 80 some rules or regulations that need to be gone through. Again, it's this basis and purpose for each rule, each regulation. And they're provided on our website on Wednesday, last Wednesday, or was that the 26th, I think it was?
On the 26th.
And the information sent out to our industry email list. Again, if you want to be on the industry email list, I would recommend you go to our website, colorado.gov/enforcement/liquor, and on that will be a copy of the submitted basis of purpose for each rule. Okay, next to the actual regulations that were submitted to the Secretary of State on September 30. We'll start from the beginning and go from there. And would you like to take public comment on each one after each one is read in?
Unless you want to do maybe a couple at a time, and then we
Okay.
can take comment on maybe a series of 3 or so.
Okay. Regulation 47-006, titled Fermented Malt Beverages, Identification and Labeling. Changes were made to this regulation to just give clarity on the wording that 3.2 beer can also be referred to as 4.0 ABV. Some of the packaging requirements for fermented malt beverage were not as clear, so we provided language in there to make sure that 4.0 ABV could also be substituted instead of 3.2. Regulation 47-100, titled Definitions. The division, during its review of the regulations, noticed that there were definitions in more than one individual regulation. So what we did is we brought all of the definitions into one definition regulation, being 47-100. The content of those regulations weren't changed, it was just moved. So we moved most of the definitions in 47-322 to 47-100. We did add 2 new items to the definition of 47-100 as well. One is subsection I, the definition of a wholesaler, which means those entities authorized to sell alcohol beverages at wholesale to licensed retailers, including wholesalers of malt liquor, and for minimum malt beverages, wholesalers of vinous and spirituous liquors, limited wineries, brew pubs, distillery pubs, and vintners restaurants. This was to make clear that those entities could sell to all retail licenses. And one other we added under section J was a definition of sandwiches and light snacks. I get a few chuckles out there, and that's quite all right, but our division investigators quite often get to answer this question. What is a sandwich and light snack? Because several licensed establishments have to provide sandwiches and light snacks while they are serving alcohol. So this gives a definition of what those things are, and they are the following. Sandwiches as used in Article 47 and 48 of Title 12 CRS are defined as single serving items such as hamburgers, hot dogs, frozen pizzas, burritos, chicken wings, etc. Light snacks, as used in Articles 47 and 48 of Title 12, are defined as popcorn, pretzels, nuts, chips, etc. So you now know the definition of snacks and light snacks and sandwiches for the record. The next one, Regulation 47-200, titled, actually we changed the title. The new title is Petition for Statements of Position and Declaratory Orders Concerning the Colorado Liquor, Beer, or Special Event Codes. The division has been more active than in the past on issuing position statements. We looked at Regulation 47-200 and wanted to not necessarily change it, but give more guidance to the person or companies who wanted to request a position statement. So we did a strike below of the former 47-200 and redid it. And all it does is it gives more direction on who and how to petition the division and the state licensing authority for both position statements and declaratory orders. Two items of change that we did make was that the time for the division to respond for a position statement request was changed from 30 days to 45 days. The time frame for a person receiving such position to request a declaratory order was also changed from 30 to 45 days. The other change that was made was that a position statement can only be relied on for 5 years instead of 10 as formally written.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments with regard to Regulation 47-006, 47-100, or 47-200? All right, I see no hands. Mr. Maroni?
Thank you. Next, Regulation 47-302, titled Changing, Altering, or Modifying Licensed Premises. The changes made to this regulation were minor. Some of it was spelling, some of it was the fact that it only referenced for minimum malt beverage licenses, so we changed that to reflect all alcohol licenses. And it gave clear instruction under subsection A5 of the difference between a retail license and a state license. Regulation 47-304, titled Transfer of Ownership and Changes in Licensed Entities. We made typographical changes to that. No content was changed. Then Regulation 47-305, titled Transfers Wholesale Confirmation. This regulation came about as a lot of work from the working groups concerning provision in Senate Bill 16-197 that mandated all wholesalers must be paid before a transfer of license can be done, and that evidence needed to be provided to the local licensing authority that those debts have been paid. The working group worked long and hard to come up with a language for 47-305. It provides the process in which the wholesaler is notified, and how the transferor provides that information to the local licensing authority to be compliant with Senate Bill 16-197. I applaud the efforts of the working group that spent a lot of time on this because it took a while to come up with the language, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. I think it came out very well.
All right, any comments regarding regulations 47-302, 47-304, and 47-305? Okay, I see no hands. Mr. Maroney?
47-306, change of trade name. The division added a provision under this regulation that if a company was going to use their trade name in either signage or advertising, that trade name that's being used must be the one on file with the division. Under regulation 47-310, application-general provisions, we added some language to paragraph D that says willful or deliberate misrepresentation may result in a denial or revocation of license when it comes to your application. In subsection A, it was typographical errors. In subsection E, we added the crimes of fraud and forgery that could be evaluated as determining moral character. And then also under section E, we added number 6 and changed the wording to be consistent with statute, where the fine of a person who is not a good moral character by any licensing authority could be not get a license. Next, regulation 47-311, public transportation system license. This regulation was requested from the division due to a review of the regulations and the fact that we have been operating under this premise for the last 5 years by policy alone. So what this regulation does, it gives guidelines or standards of when a public transportation system license has to be issued to airplanes in Colorado. Again, this was done by policy alone previously, and we're just codifying that in rule.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments with regard to regulation, let me start 47-306? 305?
Oh, you're right, 306, sorry.
47-306, 47-310, or 47-311? All right, I see none.
All right, regulation 47-312, titled change of location. In subsection C, it was typographical error. Subsection F was to add language to be compliant with Senate Bill 16-197, discussion change of location for a retail liquor store. Subsection G was typographical, as well as subsection H. Regulation 47-316, titled advertising practices. In subsection A, we made it clear that licensees must have information and available records for inspection instead of just suppliers. And then under section B5, again, the working groups worked long and hard at providing this regulation to allow suppliers or wholesalers to have specific items of display provided at a retail facility that were going to be given away. The law prohibits them from supplying these items outside of that giveaway. So the rule now allows a supplier/wholesaler to provide items to retailers for a giveaway. And this provides guidelines on how the contest must be conducted, as well as timelines of how long items can be on display, who is responsible for getting those items to the consumer, and other processes concerning the retailer and wholesalers' obligations. And then 47-317, titled Market Research, Non-Licensed Locations. This was another regulation that was added in rule because of a policy by the division. We have allowed this activity for several years, mostly at malls where people were asked to be involved in market research. There was no guidelines on how those companies conducted that research. So this regulation 47-317, which is new, provides guidelines on how those market research companies can conduct market research in non-licensed locations. And I did see one typographical error on, there's two paragraphs H's, and one of those, the last one needs to be changed to I.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, 312, 316, and 317.
Thank you. Any public comment regarding regulations 47, 312, 316, or 317? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Finley, Findley. I'm with the Executive Director of the Colorado Beer Distributors Association, and here to speak in opposition to 47-316, advertising practices, Section B, point of sales, supplier giveaways and displays. We shared our opposition with the work group and the division throughout the process. We submitted written opposition to the division. I just want to submit that same opposition here today for the record. I don't need any further explanation. Just wanted to submit that for the record.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? 312, 316, 317. Okay, I see no one else. Mr. Marone?
47-318, owner-manager. In subsection B, we added information, here that again provided guidance through rule, just not policy, on how owners and managers are handled. And I do want to read in, we're talked about the owners may hire managers, and manager may be compensated on the basis of profits made, gross or net. In such cases, except through an IRS qualified retirement account, the financial interest of the managers must be reported on the forms prescribed by the Liquor Enforcement Division. The manager may be required to complete an individual history report and be subject to a background check. Regulation 47-319, new regulation titled Liquor License Drugstore Manager Permit. Senate Bill 16-197 introduced this new requirement for a liquor license drugstore to have a manager's permit. Again, these rules and regulations were vetted through the rulemaking process, or the working group process. And this is A through D, gives the process and how a manager permit will be issued on forms prescribed by the division. It also has a provision under paragraph B where the permitted manager must be on duty and working on the licensed premises during all hours of operation. Or I should say a manager, not the manager. The last one was 47-322, titled Unfair Trade Practices and Competition. The first part of this is where we struck out the definitions and moved those to 47-100. And then under section A, B, introduced a new concept, well, I shouldn't say new, but new by rule, concept of on-site sales promotions when suppliers/wholesalers can give away product at an off-premises retailer. We have a lot of discussion about this practice that would be new to Colorado by rule, even though I think it's been happening for a while. The working group spent a lot of time on this, and I know that there has been some objection. Some objections I've supplied to you, Mr. Parman, in the rule record, and I'd like to hear any testimony today of any of those objections as well.
My name is Eric Nielsen, Nielsen with Pioneer Wine and Spirits. I guess this is more of a clarification. Is this where it involves hand sellers? Is this the on-site promotion, or is that section L? This was something that you had brought up in the last statutory working group, Patrick, at the very beginning of the meeting. I know that wasn't the focus of that meeting, which is why I'm here today, is to, I guess, get a clarification of hand sellers. Reading through this, I don't see anything about that, but there was talk about changing for the next year, for 1 year, only having beer being able to be promoted and not wine and spirits. Is that accurate, or?
This regulation would allow a supplier/wholesaler to purchase items at a retail liquor store or liquor licensed drugstore and give those items away to consumers during an on-site sales promotion. The regulation provides parameters of the cost of what they purchased the product at and possibly sell back at the end if they don't give them all away. At this point, it does include all 3 alcohols: beer, wine, and spirits. The opposition that I've received in writing in discussion with the industry group, the wine and spirits industries do have some objection to it. So I'm taking that in consideration, as well as any testimony here today, whether or not we want to change that to just beer.
Okay. I'll hold my position for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on 318, 319, or 322?
I'm Joan Green Turner, and I'm here to speak on 322. I represent the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States. We would respectfully request that spirits and wine be removed from this section for the present time. There have been, this is something that is not allowed in any other state in the nation for any of the products, to the best of my client's knowledge. And we believe that it needs to be further vetted and to make a determination as to whether there needs to be additional parameters put around it. So we would respectfully request that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Steppet, S-T-E-P-P-A-T, and I am here representing the Wine and Spirit Wholesalers of Colorado. I am speaking about proposed regulation 47322. I'll keep it short and sweet and just say that I agree with the previous witness, Joan, from representing Discus, that we don't believe that this regulation should go forward, that includes wine and spirits. We think that there should be some more guardrails established in terms of frequency of events and the amount of product giving away. So we would like to ask that the division kick this issue to down the road for the next working group to address. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Landon Gates, G-A-T-E-S. I'm here today on behalf of the Wine Institute. I know my client had previously submitted comments to you, Patrick, in an email dated September 21st with our concerns with this proposed regulation. I was just asked to remind you of that again today. I believe they'd also like to submit additional comments. I think you said the record
yeah, standard.loman. We'll give you the address afterwards.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, I don't see anyone. Mr. Maroney?
Mr. Perman, a couple of things that I missed here. I apologize. On 47-322, we also had changes to paragraph E and L. E, section 2D, we gave some better clarity on wholesalers giving alcohol beverage samples to retailers. For off-premises locations, it allows, the previous rules allow the wholesaler to leave samples left intact at retail liquor stores and liquor licensed drugstores. But it gave no direction on what to do with them afterwards. So therefore, we are adding language to the rule that says that these items must be removed from the licensed premises at the end of the day. And then in paragraph L, we wanted to clarify to make sure that the cost of labor also included pouring or serving alcohol beverages, except as allowed by regulation 47.322B2. So I apologize, I didn't see those at the end of my page here, so those are also part of 322.
Thank you. Any comment regarding those particular provisions of regulation 322? All right, I don't see anyone. Go ahead.
Mr. Perman, also concerning what we talked about hand sales and objection we received from the wine and spirits industry, the division will be submitting a revised regulation tomorrow concerning this that will remove wine and spirits from this practice, but will still allow the practice to be done with malt beverages or malt liquor. Sorry?
We'll still allow the practice to be done with malt beverages.
Malt beverages.
Okay, so you're going to submit a new regulation 47.322
under B3.
Which will remove the wine and spirits from that regulation?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, you may continue.
Okay. 40 dash set for, I need some water. Got that.
Actually, can I make another comment? Can I understand the basis of?
I'm sorry.
Let's go ahead and we'll continue with the rules at the end of everything. If we have time, we'll open back up for all of the rules.
47-323, titled Lawful Extension of Credit. This addition to this rule under A2 added language to be compliant with Senate Bill 16-197, which does not allow a liquor licensed drugstore to purchase on credit. 47-328, labeled Entertainment Districts, we changed some typographical errors. And 47-400, titled Licensed Breweries, we wanted to add the words in the title, distilleries and wineries. And under subsection B, we just wanted to add clarity to the fact that all manufacturers who are licensed pursuant to section 1247.402, CRS who sell their product to licensed retailers must also obtain a wholesale license pursuant to section 1247.406.
Thank you. Are there any comment with regard to regulations 47.323, 328, and 400? All right, I see none. Mr. Maroney?
Regulation 47-407, titled Liquor Licensed Drugstore. Several additions were made to this regulation due to Senate Bill 16-197. And it gives guidance, or actually not guidance, but the process in how a liquor licensed drugstore can have additional locations. It sets the parameter of how that location's distance will be calculated. It gives definition to what open to the public means. It gives definition to the word evidence, which is information from the liquor license drugstore on their percent of food in the last 12 months. It gives definition to the word food items. It also gives guidance and processes on how a liquor license drugstore must maintain their certification as a responsible vendor. And outlines how the liquor license drugstore may no longer have a retail storage permit. Okay, that's 47-407, 47-408, titled Purchases by Retailers. The Liquor Enforcement Division wanted to clarify under D, the records maintained. We also referenced the regulation as well as the law. And also in paragraph E, to clarify that purchases of malt liquor or fermented malt beverage by retailers must be from the wholesaler designated within the territory rights pursuant to section 1247-406. 1BI, including a retailer's purchase of a licensed wholesaler license location. And then 47-410, resale storage permit. Under A3, again, is compliance with Senate Bill 16-197 that does not allow the liquor license drugstore to have a retail storage permit.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments with regard to regulations 47-407, 408, and 410? I see none. Thank you. Go ahead.
Regulation 47-414, purchases by wholesalers. The division recognizes that the fluidity of businesses opening and closing occurs quickly. This previous rule allows a licensed retailer to sell back alcohol stock within 5 days after expiration or surrender and cancellation by the state or local licensing authority. We decided that 5 days was not long enough, and we changed it to 30. So under the new proposed regulation, a retailer that's been expired or surrendered has 30 days to sell alcohol stock back to the appropriate wholesaler. It does not mandate them to, but it gives them the opportunity to. (47-416), titled Items Approved for Sale in Retail Liquor Stores. Senate Bill 16-197 changed the whole regulation on items that are going to be sold at a retail liquor store, and the new regulation just reflects those changes. Regulation 47-506 is fees. We added a new fee for the application for the transfer and conversion of additional liquor license drugstores at $1,200. The manager permit registration application fee at $100. Because of House Bill 1439, lodging entertainment facility was added to a new license type that has a registered manager. We added that information to the cost of their application. And then for winery direct shipping permit, we just added the word winery to make it consistent with statute.
All right, thank you. Any comments with regard to regulations 47-414, 416, or 506? I see none. Mr. Maroney?
Regulation 47-602, titled Temporary Summary Suspension. Mr. Parman, the division decided at this time not to go forward with the changes to this regulation. In light of conversation we've had with the industry, we do feel the need to change this regulation to reflect practice and abilities for the Liquor Enforcement Division to properly do a summary suspension. But I believe there's other things we need to discuss with the industry before making that final decision. So we're going to remand this back to the working groups, and we're going to ask for this rule request to be stricken from the request.
Okay.
In other words, we have more work to do at coming up with a good regulation for this.
All right.
47-700, inspection of licensed premises. What we did with this regulation was to help licensees understand that, come out of the dark ages a little bit, and allow that books and records could also include information and documents provided in a readable, electronical/digital format, facsimile or paper. The way the law and rule is written today is you gotta keep paper copies at all licensed facilities. I understand how a lot of licensed facilities, especially with corporations, books and records may not be at that location, and they may not be in hard copy form. So this rule hopefully just brings things up to the 21st century. We've already discussed 47-900, 47-904, titled Product Labeling, Substitution, Sampling, and Analysis. Under Section A, our rules do not allow licensees to reuse empty alcohol containers. The intent of that was that you would not refill it with a different kind of product. But the way the rule is written today, though, would also mean you can't refill it with anything. So, looking at the industry, we decided to add language saying that nothing herein shall prohibit a licensee from using emptied liquor bottles with labels removed from filling them with non-alcohol items like marble, sand, salt, pepper, and so forth for the purpose of this decoration or display. Subsection F within 47-904, be added language or shipped to be consistent with the statute, because the statute also talks about shipping products into Colorado that must be registered, so this was to add that. And then 47-912 labeled identification. We added subsection C to be consistent with Senate Bill 16-197, where by rule we have to define the identification types that can be used to verify someone's age at a retail liquor store or liquor licensed drugstore.
Thank you. Any comment with regard to regulations 47-700, 904, or 912? I guess as well as 602, the decision to remove that. All right, I see no one. Mr. Maroney?
Regulation 47-913, age of employees. Changes were made to this to be compliant with Senate Bill 16-187, which changed the age of an employee at a tavern to 21 exclusively. So we made changes to that. Regulation 47-918, removal of alcohol beverage from premises. Upon review from the division, this rule was a little bit inconsistent with statute, so we decided to make it clear that wholesalers may remove sealed and unsealed containers of alcohol beverages from liquor licensed premises that have been introduced during the retailer sampling. Under 47-940, powdered alcohol, packaging and labeling. Powdered alcohol has been something that the working groups have been talking about for a couple years now. And the legislation was cleared to us in this last year that powdered alcohol division was going to be responsible for regulating this product. Therefore, last year and this year, the industry got together and had a working group to discuss what that would look like. So 47-940, and I'd like to also include 47-942, provides packaging and labeling requirements for powdered alcohol, and then also how powdered alcohol will be regulated. I might just keep on going.
Yeah,
One
just go
more.
ahead and do the last one then.
Regulation 47-1020, alcohol beverage donations. Under paragraph B, we added the words including resale by the drink. In the past, the language that was already there, which consisted of donated beverages may be used for hospitality or fundraising purposes, the division has taken a stance that that does not include resale by the drink. During working group meetings and during discussions with division staff, and also doing some history on how this regulation was drafted in the past, we decided including resale by the drink would be the appropriate measure to allow charity organizations that receive donated alcohol to use it for fundraising purposes, like example of a one-time event charge, table charge, and now they can also use that alcohol to be resold by the drink. That is changing the division policy and direction, and we wanted to do that by rule. And then in subsection E, this is another one of those items that was in practice but not by rule. Currently, with the law and rules read, liquor license for off-premise consumption, mostly retail liquor stores and liquor licensed drugstores, do not have a way to invoice your on-premise retailers for donations, and it was not allowed. We decided the only way that they would be able to do that was to use their emergency reserve of $2,000 in order to invoice the on-premise location to use in fundraising for charity events held at those locations. We decided to put this into rule in addition to policy.
All right, are there any comments with regard to regulations 47, 913, 918, 940, 942, and 1020? Okay, I see no one. Let's go ahead and open it up to all proposed regulations here today. Any additional comments with regard to any of the proposed regulations at issue? Did you still have a question, sir, that you wanted to come forward with?
Nielsen, N-I-E-L-S-E-N. This is with regard to...
Can you speak up just a little bit, please?
And this is in regard to 47, 322. There is no language currently written within the section. I know that this is something you brought up verbally, Patrick, in the last statutory working group, and because there is no language in here about this, and I know you said you're going to insert about hand sellers. Is there either a clarification or when do we put them in the to see such information?
If I understand what you're saying you don't believe there's language in there that allows it?
Or disallows it.
Well,
Specifically in reference to what you had said about allowing beer to have promotions but not wine and spirits.
Under B3,
Correct.
a supplier-sponsored consumer giveaway of alcohol beverages held in a retail establishment's licensed for off-premise consumption for the purpose of product sales promotion are permitted under the following conditions. So then A through I gives those conditions on how a supplier can give away product. So I'm
sorry, I guess, let me give a definition of a hand seller. A person that would come onto a retail premises or on-site, on-premise licensed facility to promote an item, but not to give away the item, or am I misunderstanding?
For an on-premises, for like a restaurant or something like that, or for off-premises?
I'm specifically talking more for off.
Because on is already addressed in the regulation, and it gives a clear guidance on how alcohol can be given to consumers for consumer sampling by the wholesalers. Up until this, there's no kind of same analogy to giving away items. In an off-premises location, take a retail liquor store, for example. This gives guidance to how the wholesaler can purchase items from the retailer and give them away during an on-site sales promotion.
I'm just talking about somebody entering the store, promoting product and giving information to consumers within a store.
I mean, information is, we don't necessarily regulate the information, we're talking about the product itself.
Right, okay.
So marketers that come in to promote certain specific items that aren't giving items away, that business is not addressed here.
Okay. That's a misunderstanding on my
Okay,
part.
yeah, because this is specifically addressing actually giving away free alcohol product
Okay.
in a sealed container to someone that's a patron of the store.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments with regard to any of the proposed rules and regulations here today? All right, I see no one else. All right, are there any other matters to be considered concerning these proposed regulations, either from the division?
No.
All right, then that will conclude this formal rulemaking. Thank you all.